welcome to Module 4 of the SBH Teaching Kitchen's online cooking series. My name is Emily, and in this lesson I'm going to show you a very simple fish-based dish that we can make in just one pan. This is going to be our roasted lemon garlic whitefish with cherry tomatoes. So before we put everything into the oven, we are going to marinate our fish just for a little bit to give it some extra flavor. That whitefish has a pretty neutral flavor to it, so using things like spice rubs and marinades just help to make our dish that much more delicious. So here I have 4 6-ounce portions of basa fish. And you can really use any kind of whitefish here, whether it be cod or halibut, really whatever looks fresh and is available to you. So don't worry too much about what type of fish you're using, just pick out some whitefish that looks good to you at a price point that works for you. So for my marinade, it's going to be very simple. It's just going to be the zest and juice from 1 lemon, a couple of cloves of garlic, some oil, and some salt. Very simple, very easy to throw together. I'm going to start by zesting and juicing my lemon, and I'm going to let my fish marinate just in a shallow container. So you always want to zest your citrus before you juice it, because it's easier to zest it while it is whole. And that zest has all of the essential oils of that citrus in it, so it's very aromatic. It really just smells like bright, fresh lemon when you're zesting it, and that flavor is just going to be imparted into our fish. Once our lemon is zested, we can go ahead and juice it. And this is going to give us about 2 tablespoons of juice. Once our lemon is juiced, we can go ahead and mince our garlic. The recipe calls for 4 cloves of garlic. You can always use more if you would like. My cloves are very small, so I will be using 6 here. And we just want to mince that garlic. It doesn't need to be perfect. Once your garlic is minced, you're just going to add that to your container with your lemon juice and zest. And now all we need is 2 tablespoons of oil. And then we're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now what I like to do is kind of take each piece and make sure that it is thoroughly coated in that marinade, so that everything is getting that delicious lemon garlic flavor on it. Now fish is pretty delicate, so unlike other pieces of meat where we can marinate them overnight, we don't want to marinate this for too long. The acidity from the lemon juice can actually start to almost cook the fish. It's going to change the texture of it. So now that my fish is evenly coated in that marinade, I can go ahead and put this into the fridge, and we're going to marinate it for 10 to 30 minutes, and that's actually the perfect amount of time to allow us to start preparing the rest of our vegetables. We're going to roast the fish with some cherry tomatoes and sliced red onion. Those do take longer to roast than the fish, so we can get those into the oven, and then once the fish is done marinating, we put that onto the pan with our vegetables, roast for about 10 minutes, and then we have dinner ready to go. While our fish is marinating, we can start to prepare our vegetables. So for this dish, we just need 1 pint of cherry tomatoes, and then 1 red onion that we're going to slice into thick slices. Now this is going to be really easy. We're not going to make any extra bowls. I'm just going to mix everything in the dish that I'm going to bake it in. Now I am going to use this dish that has high sides to it. The cherry tomatoes tend to release a fair bit of liquid as they cook, and that fish might release some liquid as well. So having something with high sides just means that you're less likely to spill that liquid as you're taking things in and out of the oven. If you just have a baking sheet, you can totally use that as well. You just might need to be a little bit careful when you're moving things in the oven. So to prepare my vegetables, I'm going to take my 1 pint of cherry tomatoes, and I did wash these, and I'm just going to put that right into my pan. I want to make sure to remove any stems from those tomatoes. We don't have to cut them. We're going to roast them whole. And then for my onion, I'm just going to trim off the top and the bottom we're essentially doing a very thick julienne here. So I can cut that in half. I just need to take the skin off. Now once you've taken the skin off your onion, we can cut this into pretty thick slices. Now I'm also going to put this right into my pan, but as I'm putting it into my pan, I'm going to do my best to separate the layers as much as I can. This just helps the onion to roast a little bit more evenly. Now what I can do is add my seasonings. So I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to this. And then I'm also going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Finally, we're going to add about a tablespoon of oil to our pan. And then you can use a spoon or your hands to just mix everything together. I prefer my hands. I just find that it's a lot faster and easier than trying to get a spoon to coat everything. And you want to make sure you spread everything into an even layer on the bottom of your pan. That's just going to help it to roast a little more evenly. We're going to put this into an oven at 400 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes. We want those tomatoes to begin to soften and burst open. We want those onions to be soft as well. And once the veggies are mostly cooked, we are going to put the fish right on top of that, bake for an additional 10 to 12 minutes, and then our dinner is ready. Alright, so our veggies have been roasting for about 15 minutes now, and we can see that in the pan, the tomatoes are starting to burst open. We see that they're starting to caramelize. We're getting some brown bits on that pan. That means that our vegetables probably only need about 10 or 15 minutes more to cook. So this is the perfect time to add our fish on top of our veggies. And so we're just going to put this in an even layer in our pan. Now if you want, you can also pour the remaining marinade just on top of that fish. That's also going to season our vegetables as well, and it's going to help to keep the fish from drying out too much. So we're going to bake this for an additional 10 to 15 minutes. We want our fish to be 145 degrees inside. The fish should be opaque, and a great way to tell if our fish is done cooking is that it will flake apart very easily with a fork. So we will check back in when our fish is done cooking. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes and our fish is fully cooked. I took the temperature of it and we did hit 145 degrees, but again, a really easy way to tell if that fish is done is to just use a fork and kind of flake apart the fish. It should easily flake apart just by using a fork or a spoon. And our vegetables underneath are fully cooked as well. So you could serve just one fillet of fish with those veggies and have that as a meal. But if you want some carbohydrates, if you want it to be a little more filling, one option could be to serve it with about a 1/2 cup of rice. So I'm just going to plate up one serving just so you have a good idea of how that's going to look. So we have our fillet here. Again, that's about 6 ounces of fish. And the great thing about this is it also makes its own sauce in the pan as well. So I'm just going to spoon on some of my veggies here. I want about a cup of vegetables for our serving. And then what we can do is use a spoon and get all of those great juices and just pour them over the fish, over the rice, as that delicious sauce. And so there we have our final dish. We have that delicious white fish. We're getting some wonderful healthy fats from there. We're getting some great omega-3 fatty acids that are so important for you to get. We have our delicious roasted vegetables in there as well. And then that great lemon garlic sauce that's just tying everything together. Thank you for joining us for Module 4 of the SBH Teaching Kitchen's online cooking series. This has been our recipe for roasted lemon garlic whitefish with cherry tomatoes, and we'll see you again for the next one.